Hey, I'm Caleb Christenson, also known as Caleb the Nurse. I made this training because after 17 years in nursing, I kept seeing the same pattern over and over again. Great nurses, hard workers, high income, and absolutely no clarity about whether their retirement was actually going to work. Most of us were never taught how to evaluate our financial future the way we evaluate patients. We were given defaults and told to trust the system. I did that for years until a single conversation showed me how fragile that really was. This isn't a hype video. This is not about side hustles or shortcuts. It's a practical way to assess whether your retirement is healthy, at risk for injury, or quietly circling the drain. As you watch this, you'll hear me reference tools and frameworks that help you organize your thinking. If you decide you want to go deeper, there's a way to get a printed copy of the Mastering Retirement course and the full Millionaire Nurse Prescription bundle so that you can work through this on paper and not just in your head, and I'll even throw in a Caleb the Nurse sticker. But for now, just watch with an open mind, listen like you would on a first assessment, and don't assume you already know the answer. Welcome. I'm Caleb Christenson, also known as Caleb the Nurse. Today I want to walk you through something I call the Millionaire Nurse Prescription. This is not about side hustles. This is not about advanced degrees. It's not about becoming a finance expert or day trading your way to freedom. How nurses can build a healthy, flexible, and prosperous financial future using the income they already earn at the hospital without burning themselves out. By the end of this, you're going to know something most nurses never clearly understand. You're going to know whether your retirement is healthy, at risk for injury, or circling the drain. And more importantly, you'll know what to do about it. Before we go any further, I want you to answer this honestly. If nothing changes, no new strategy, no new structure, how long can you realistically keep doing this job? Not how long can you technically work, but how long do you want to? I've been a nurse for 17 years. I've worked critical care. I've worked cath lab. I've taken care of open hearts. I have seen a lot. And I'll be honest with you, I'm done. I've done what I wanted to do in nursing, and I don't want to do this forever. So the real question isn't if retirement matters, it's when and how. Because retirement planning only matters if we're honest about the work we're doing today, physically, mentally, and emotionally. For most of my career, I did exactly what I was supposed to do. I became a nurse, I worked hard, I picked up overtime, and I made good money. And like most nurses, I enrolled in the default hospital retirement plan. 1K, auto contributions, whatever the hospital set up for me. On paper, I looked responsible, but there was always this nagging question in the back of my mind. Am I actually on track, or am I just hoping this works out? Because nobody ever sat me down and explained to me how retirement wealth actually works. We're trained on protocols, we're trained on patient safety, we're trained on documentation and compliance. But financially, you get about a 5-minute orientation when you're hired, and that is it. So most nurses do the only thing they know how to do. They work harder, and they hope. Everything changed for me when I met Pete. I was detailed to the emergency department for a couple of months, and Pete worked there. Pete was just a normal bedside nurse, but he had a reputation. Everyone knew Pete as the retirement wizard of the hospital. Not because he sold anything, not because he was flashy, but because he understood how the hospital retirement plan actually worked. So I asked Pete for a curbside consult. He said sure, and logged into his retirement account. Pete, the humble bedside nurse, had over $1 million in his TSP. That's the federal equivalent of the 401k, growing at a rate far beyond what most nurses ever see. He explained something no one had ever explained to me before. He showed me how his retirement account was properly distributed across the TSP funds, instead of sitting in the default government-protected G fund that barely grows. Then he had me log into my account. And I'll never forget his reaction. He kind of gagged. And I said, okay, we need to fix this. In about 5 minutes, Pete reallocated my TSP. Same income, same job, same contributions, just better distribution. He told me not to touch anything and to come back in a year. About a year later, my account had grown roughly 12%, tens of thousands of dollars more than before. The year prior, barely 3%. That 5-minute conversation didn't cost me a dime, and it completely changed how I thought about retirement. Because for the first time I realized this, the problem wasn't effort. The problem wasn't income. The problem was structure. That moment sent me down a path of learning. I started studying how retirement accounts actually work, how growth is affected by structure, allocation, timing, and access. Pete showed me that small structural changes create massive long-term outcomes. Let me tell you another story. When I was a new nurse working night shift on med-surg, The charge nurse said, "Hey Caleb, I'm giving you an admission. It's an easy one, just a UTI. Older gentleman, alert, oriented, vital signs stable, nothing concerning." I got him admitted, started antibiotics, tucked him in, charted everything, and handed him off to day shift. On paper, everything looked fine. When I came back the next night, I asked how he was doing. They told me he had coded and did not survive. He was severely acidotic. Metabolic acidosis from overwhelming sepsis. The infection was far more advanced than his vitals were showing when I saw him. He looked fine until he wasn't. Years later, working in the cath lab, I saw the same pattern again. We got called in for a STEMI. Minimal chest pain, rock solid vitals, calm, talking. He looked so good that I told his wife, "He'll be fine. This is routine for us. He'll probably be home tomorrow." Then we got access. He had 99% critical left main disease, the kind you just don't fix. We couldn't intervene safely. He ended up with an impella, then a complex PCI days later after being rejected from surgery. Then he coded on the table. We placed him on ECMO, and eventually the team had to withdraw care. Both of these patients taught me the same thing. The most dangerous situations aren't the ones that look bad. They're the ones that look fine. In nursing, we call this at risk for injury. And that's exactly where most nurses' retirement plans live. That's exactly where my retirement plan was before I met Pete. I thought everything was going to be okay. I'm a hard worker. The hospital will take care of me. I'm contributing to my retirement account. I have nothing to worry about. Balance is okay. Contributions are happening. Statements feel reassuring. But underneath, there's no structure, no flexibility, no protection against bad timing, no plan for when life hits. As with those patients, everything appears stable right up until it isn't. That's why working harder doesn't fix this. You won't fix hidden sepsis with reassurance. You don't fix critical disease by saying, "We'll deal with it later." You fix it with early diagnosis and proper structure and treatment. Most nurses have no idea which one they're part of and are living under. And working harder does not fix the wrong diagnosis. Here's the big idea. Your retirement is just like a patient. It's either healthy, at risk for injury, or circling the drain. And here's the part most nurses never hear. Those patients didn't crash because no one cared. They crashed because the problem was structural, not obvious on the surface, not screaming for attention, but quietly progressing underneath. That's exactly how retirement failure happens for nurses. Not from laziness, not from irresponsibility, not from lack of income, but from relying on a single system to do jobs it was never designed to do. That's why Pete's 5-minute fix mattered so much. It wasn't magic. It wasn't insider knowledge. It was structure. And once I understood that, I realized there's a bigger distinction at play. The one that separates nurses who retire with confidence from nurses who feel stuck. It's something I now call the 2-bucket system. Bucket 1, the hospital bucket. Accumulation. Bucket 1 is your hospital plan. That's the one Pete helped me with. Your 401k, your 403b, your TSP if you're federal. This bucket is designed for one thing only, accumulation. You put money in, it grows over time, you don't touch it, and that's fine. In fact, you should absolutely use this bucket, especially if there's a match. Think of this bucket like a patient on long-term antibiotics. It needs time and needs consistency, and you don't mess with it unless absolutely necessary. The problem is, this bucket is terrible at flexibility. The moment you need access, loans slow growth. Withdrawals trigger taxes and penalties, and every move costs you long-term compounding. I learned that the hard way when I took a 401k loan to start my business. Not because I was irresponsible, it's because I only had one bucket. I decided to step away from the hospital to start my business. It wasn't reckless. It wasn't impulsive. It was calculated. I had skills. I had a plan. I had a vision for something that could give my family long-term freedom. But when it came to fund that transition, I realized something terrifying. The only place I could access capital was my 401k, or in my case, my TSP. Years of disciplined savings, years of overtime, years of doing the right thing, all locked behind penalties, taxes, and rules. So I did what a lot of nurses do. I took a 401k loan. On the surface, it felt reasonable. It's my money, I'm paying myself back. This is better than credit cards. But here's what no one explains. The real cost of that loan wasn't the repayment. It wasn't even the stress. The real cost of what that money stopped doing. While I was trying to build something new, that chunk of my retirement was not compounding. It wasn't growing. It wasn't working. And over a long enough timeline, that single decision made out of necessity, not irresponsibility, likely cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars in future wealth. Not because I failed, but because the system punished me for needing access. That's when it really hit me. Traditional retirement plans are great at accumulation. They are terrible at real life. They assume a straight line career, no pivots, no burnout, no opportunity, no disruption. And the moment your life doesn't follow the script, you're forced to break the very system you've spent years building. And that's when I realized the problem wasn't that I took a loan. The problem was that I had to. I had built my entire financial future inside a single bucket, one that could either grow quietly in the background or be raided in an emergency, but not both. That's not a character flaw, that's a design flaw. Exactly why one bucket is never enough. One bucket does its job until life shows up. It grows quietly in the background, it rewards patience and consistency, but the moment you need flexibility, it turns against you. That doesn't mean bucket one is bad. It means that it was never designed to do two jobs at once. So the real solution isn't abandoning your hospital plan, it's stopping it from being your only option. What you need is a second system, one that assumes life will happen, not that everything will go perfectly. A bucket that gives you access without destroying compounding. A bucket that creates options instead of penalties. A bucket that lets you move forward without breaking what you've already built. And that's what bucket 2 is. This is the personal retirement account, or PRA. It's the missing layer that protects bucket 1. It's the reason nurses who understand structure never have to choose between growth and access. This is your bucket. You control it. You fund it intentionally, and it's built with a different assumption. It assumes life will happen, career changes, burnout, opportunities, emergencies. Instead of punishing you for needing access to your capital, this bucket is designed to handle it. When structured correctly, your money continues to grow, you can access capital without blowing up your future, and you don't have to sabotage bucket 1. This is the difference between reacting to life and planning for it. You don't want one bucket doing two jobs. It's like asking one IV line to run fluids, antibiotics, blood, and pressors all in the same line. You separate systems on purpose. Bucket 1 grows quietly in the background. Bucket 2 gives you options. Same income, same nurse, completely different outcome. If you're early in your career, the PRA helps you build a war chest alongside your hospital plan. If you're mid-career, the PRA helps protect you from injury, burnout, bad timing, bad market years. And if you're later in your career, the PRA gives you control so you're not forced to take withdrawals at the worst possible time. This is how nurses stop drifting and start deciding. With consistent contributions and proper structure, this second bucket can become a powerful source of accessible wealth over time. In many cases, reaching high 6 or 7 figures across a 10 to 20 year window, depending on how aggressively it's funded and how the markets perform. Here are the 3 diagnoses. Healthy. Healthy retirement has intentional structure. Multiple systems working together, growth, protection, and access. It doesn't mean perfect, it means stable and supported. At risk for injury, this is where most nurses live. Default 401k, no flexibility, no real plan, vitals look okay, but one bad life event changes everything. Or circling the drain. This is the danger zone. Forced 401k loans, delayed retirement, fear disguised as responsibility. Working longer because there's no alternative. Here's what most people miss. The same diagnosis looks very different depending on where you're at in your career. Phase 1, early career building years. If you're early in your career, healthy looks like employer match maximize. Second bucket started early. Lifestyle under control, you're building a war chest quietly. At risk looks like default only, I'll deal with this later. Circling the drain looks like high income, no structure, debt normalized. This phase is about building the war chest without burnout. Phase 2, mid-career, peak earning years. This is where mistakes get expensive. Healthy looks like 2 bucket system active, clear retirement number, tax awareness. At risk looks like, I think I'm fine. Big balance, no flexibility. Circling the drain looks like 401k loans, rating retirement for life events. This is where small mistakes turn into 6-figure problems. Phase 3, late career exit window. Healthy looks like risk is intentionally managed. Exit strategy is defined. Income is understood. At risk looks like large balance, still exposed. No withdrawal plan. Circling the drain looks like fear-based decisions, delayed exit, regret. This phase is about protecting and deploying the war chest. Now, take a moment and ask yourself honestly, based on what you've just heard, which diagnosis are you living with right now? So, what actually fixes this? Not more overtime, not more hustle, better structure. So if you're a nurse who wants to stop guessing where they're at in their retirement, or you think you might be at risk for injury or even circling the drain, here's what I want to offer you. Not a pitch, not a guess. I want to give you your Pete moment. I call it the Millionaire Nurse Prescription Review. This is where me and my team of nurse-focused financial professionals sit down and look at your financial situation, your income, your hospital retirement plan, your current allocations, your career phase, your diagnosis. We'll start by reviewing your hospital plan, your 401k, 403b, TSP, and making sure it's structured correctly. Not just that you're contributing, but that you're maximizing it. Most nurses think they're doing everything right because money is going in, but they have no idea that money is how it's actually allocated inside their plan. They're often sitting in defaults, overly conservative funds, and poorly balanced allocations that quietly cap their growth for decades. This is where most nurses have their first real aha moment, just like I did with Pete. We make sure your hospital plan is working as hard as possible for you. You're not leaving money on the table. You're not leaving growth on the table. You're not unknowingly stuck in low-performing defaults. Then, and only then, we look at the next layer. We talk about whether a personal retirement account makes sense for you. Not everyone needs it right away. Not everyone should add it immediately. We assess whether a PRA can be layered on top of your hospital plan, what role it would play in your career phase, how it could give you flexibility without sabotaging what you've already built. For mid-career and late-career nurses, the review goes deeper. We'll also discuss your exit timeline from bedside care, how to minimize taxes on the money you've already accumulated, how to convert savings into retireable lifetime income, how to avoid being forced in withdrawals at the worst possible time. This is where retirement stops being a vague someday idea and becomes a clear, intentional plan. If a PRA isn't the right move for you yet, we will tell you that. This is not a sales call. This is a professional assessment, the kind nurses rarely receive. Think of it like this. You wouldn't accept a diagnosis without labs. You wouldn't treat a patient without understanding the full picture. This is that moment for your financial life. You'll leave this review knowing where you are, what's working, what's missing, and what the smartest next step actually is. Here's something I've learned after working with nurses for a long time. When something is completely free, it doesn't get taken seriously. This is not a slice of free pizza your manager is leaving in the break room on Nurses Week. This is a potentially life-changing consultation like the one I had with Pete. When things are free, people show up unprepared. They don't engage, they don't follow through. And that's not fair to you or to us. This review is a professional consultation. It requires preparation, intention, and follow through. So instead of offering this as a random free call, we are asking for a small investment of $27. Not because the review is worth $27, but because commitment matters. That small step ensures that we're working with nurses who are serious about understanding and improving their financial future. Here's what this $27 will include. You'll receive the printed Mastering Retirement course delivered to your home so you can work through it intentionally. You'll receive instant digital access to the material so you can get started right away today. You'll also receive the Millionaire Nurse Prescription audio and digital bundle so you can listen, review, and reinforce these concepts on your schedule. They'll prepare you for the review, they will give you context, they will help organize your thinking, they'll make the conversation productive and valuable. There's one more important piece. To meet with our professionals, you'll complete the first chapter of the Mastering Retirement workbook. This isn't busy work. This is preparation. The first chapter walks you through organizing your accounts, balances, and basic details in a clear, simple format. Most nurses have their numbers scattered across logins, statements, and screenshots. This process pulls everything into one place. This workbook is your chart. By the time we meet, your information is organized, your situation is clear, and the conversation is focused on strategy, not confusion. There is more information on the next page about everything that is included with the small $27 investment, which includes the Millionaire Nurse Prescription Review, the Millionaire Nurse Prescription course, and the Mastering Retirement course bundle. Most nurses don't fail financially because they're irresponsible. They fail because they were never given a clear structure. This system gives you clarity over confusion, structure instead of hope, options instead of fear. So if you're ready to stop guessing, if you want to know where you actually stand, if you want a clear professional plan forward, roll in the Millionaire Nurse Prescription course. Start with your Pete moment. Click the button below and get started. I'm Caleb the Nurse, and I'll see you inside.